Okay, remember that they're changing my voice. This video is very important. In this video, I'm going to prove to you that there are people behind the scenes causing things to occur, and I'm going to give you the information you need to show other people. First of all, MK Ultra. The word MK Ultra, the phrase MK Ultra scrambled, is Kult Ram. And this connects to the rampart division back in the day in Southern California, in Los Angeles. Okay. It also connects to the more recent police officer gang in Southern California, the Bandidos. Okay. It's very important there. So you have MK Ultra's Kult Ram Scramble, and you have the rampart division. And they're both very active in California historically. And MK Ultra was very active here in the Bay Area, where one of the operations there was known as Operation Midnight Climax. It was very much about sex cults and sexual control, and about experimenting on people and trying to control who's dating who. And there was a lot of rapes that occurred in the MK Ultra experiments, and nobody was ever charged for them. And they involved somewhere around 100 institutions, right? Hospitals, prisons, okay, various law enforcement agencies, military, science groups, what have you. Over 100 of these groups, just tons and tons of people involved. In the Rampart division, okay, the Rampart scandal, there was a lot of claims of lots of officers involved, right? So there were 70 officers that were implicated as being involved. And the informant for the state named Rafael Perez, okay, said that 90% of the crash unit, which was a unit that cracks down on gang members, was involved in the Rampart racket, if you will, right? Where they would set up drug dealers and they would rob them. Sometimes they'd cripple them, they'd kill them. And a lot of settlements had to occur because of that process, because of that racket. And they would meet up at a bar and they give each other playing cards based on what they did, right? If they killed somebody, they get a certain playing card. If they injured somebody, they get a different playing card. So, see the documentary on it that's on the screen. Now, again, this is very key here. I'm not just talking about what you can see in the documentary, but what the connections are, right? They don't connect that to MK Ultra there. They don't connect it to the Baphomet and the fact that Hollywood is in Southern California. And in Southern California, there's a huge sex industry. And you have a street that's a very famous street, one of the most famous prostitution streets, streets with prostitutes on it on the entire planet. It's Figueroa. And there's various gangs that operate in that area, okay, including a set of the Hoover's criminal gang, which is very significant in the entertainment industry, etc. And the Figueroa connects to the fig tree in the Bible, where in the Garden of Eden, they use the fig leaves to put on their clothes, and it has sexual implications. Okay, a tree, the family tree. The stick being Christ being crucified on the cross. The sticks being thrown on the ground and turning into snakes. Okay, when we're talking about Moses and Aaron trying to prove that their God is the true God. Okay, first the magicians, they threw their sticks on the ground and they turned into snakes, I believe, and then the magicians threw their sticks on the ground and they turned into snakes. One thing I remember for sure is then Moses threw his, a stick on the ground, it turned to a snake and it ate the magician's sticks. One way or another, that's part of it, right? I'm a little hazy on the story, but I remember that, Moses and Aaron's stick turned into a snake and it ate the other snakes. And it has to do with reproductive cycles, right? To this day they call a penis, say Mr. Snakey, right? And to snake means to cheat, okay? And you get C heat is in the word cheat, and he cat, and it goes back to the pussy cat, okay? And them saying things like don't be a pussy, which goes back to the brute force mentality of Set. That's a story for another day. I'm going to keep it very simple here and not get too much into mythology. But to make a long story short, rape is a huge part of Western culture, right? The rape of Europa, where Zeus rapes Europa, and he turns into a bull, which goes back to Baal, who's associated with bulls, and the devil, and the bull horns, and the horns in the Bible. But again, let's keep this very simple here. So the movie Training Day was based on the Rampart Division's activities, in the famous case of this one gentleman who was shot and put in a wheelchair by some Rampart officers. Okay, so you have this guy, Rafael Perez, he's singing like a bird to the FBI. Now, keep in mind, the FBI is a very corrupt organization, just like the CIA. Okay, CIA is Central Intelligence. FBI is an intelligence agency. It's just like in Vietnam, there wasn't one unit doing it. They were all doing it. And so the FBI, with their history of COINTELPRO and their history of, upholding white, Jewish, and LGBT supremacy, they were the ones who were handling the case. I'm not sure what other agencies were. Okay, I'm not claiming to be an expert on the history of the Rampart Division or something, but I see the connections here, and they're straightforward. So when we're talking about the Marissa DiNapoli case, okay, there's a psychological operation going on in Santa Clara County. I have 23 witnesses on record to that operation. Okay, that's not up for debate. It's an established fact. Between the facts I've posted and the witnesses, okay, there's something going on here no matter how you slice it. And so when we ask ourselves, why did he leave the body, okay, under the bridge, Anderson Bridge? Why was she stabbed 5 times in the back? That sounds like a serial killer did it. Okay, one of two scenarios. One, he was ordered to do so, and he was in a cult behind the scenes. Remember MK Ultra's Cult Ram, and the gender-neutral Baphomet in his arrest picture. Okay, he looked like a homosexual or bisexual or something, and he looked like somebody in a gang member in the original picture that they shown, which shows that kind of connection between violence and homosexuality, which is very characteristic of the MK Ultra process, right? The Operation Midnight Climax was in San Francisco. It wasn't in the most, anti-gay town in the South. It was in like the gay capital of the world, right? San Francisco, right? And also there's Paris and Tel Aviv. But anyway, they also went into Canada. There's a lot of connections there. Let's just try to stick to the core subject here. So, what does it mean to be part of the cult ram, right? Where there's a battering ram when you break into a castle. And a castle itself is a form of a trap, right? These guys were notorious for collaborating with bandits and other feudal lords, and they get people to go into their castle, okay, and they'd rape them, and they accuse them falsely of doing things that they didn't do, and they'd take them to the dungeon and they'd rape them. It was like a rape and torture chamber. And that leads up to, the Inquisition, which had a lot of rape and torture and imprisonment. That was part of Western culture. That's part of Zeus changing form, right? Two-Face, okay? He's two-faced, and these comic book characters are also based on demons, and there's a connection between, the comic guys, Marvel, DC Comics, Hollywood, the entertainment industry, the FBI, the CIA, there's strong connections there. The military-industrial complex, okay? Where Hollywood, their special effects, their propaganda, the psychology of movies, the psychology of corporate marketing, the military psychological operations. And again, as I've told you before, psyche is where the deity psyche is where we get the word psychology. And she's raped again and again and again in Greek mythology. She has to go around putting people's temples in order. And that has to do with working on, the body is the temple, right? Mind, body, soul, and spirit. And we have the snakes in Greek mythology that are Greco-Roman mythology are called the genius, right? The word genius is based on a serpent spirit that's said to be the spirit of a statue or a person or a nation. And it goes back to sex magic and how these people believe that sex relates to intelligence. And one of these guys, Freud, said that mental disorders are a result of unfulfilled sexual desire. Now, what are those desires? Some people have desires to rape children. Some people have desires to rape other males. Some people have desires, to rape women, to rape, they have certain sexual fetishes, and the state is feeding these fetishes under the guise of national security and things of that nature. I don't know their exact justification, but I know that at times at least they claim national security, and they say you can't talk about that, okay, because they argue that it gives them an edge against other nations. Now, I have no doubt in my mind those arguments are being made here. Who, what, when, where, how, why? I don't know. I don't know that part. But the evidence is overwhelming here. It is overwhelming. It's irresponsible to pretend that it's just a theory. No, that is a fact. Keep in mind, I've lived in California almost my whole life. If you look at the rampart scandals, it connects. David Mack, who was a key rampart figure, was a member of a blood gang. He grew up in Suge Knight's neighborhood. That's why Suge Knight had the entourage. He had police officers there, and he had blood gang members there. Why? And he also was affiliated with Crips. Okay, these rampart guys broke into the evidence locker to help Snoop Dogg beat his murder case. You think that's a coincidence? Bloods and Crips and street gangs, 18th Street, you name it, they collaborate with law enforcement. Okay? And there's cults behind the scenes that are the kind of common thread. Think about, what does a military person, a police officer, a corrupt CIA agent, and gang members have in common? One of them is human trafficking and drug trafficking, right? Directing traffic. The word traffic is a play on words for try, fuck, believe it or not. Ram is ramming your dick into somebody, believe it or not. That's what the fuck it refers to. The sex, drugs, and rock and roll, the gender-neutral Baphomet, the rock and roll goat. And they say you're the goat, right? To go at. And the word goat is toga scrambled, which connects it to the Greeks and the Greek societies and college, right? These fraternities that roofie people, right? Mickey Mouse, Mickeys, and roofies. Okay? There's all kinds of connections. The cartoon and the cartoonage worn by Egyptians. Okay, think about animus, and there's a root word for animation. And think about the depictions of angels, in Europe. Think about the depictions of the Egyptian gods and the Greek and Roman gods and their paintings. There's a thin line between a painting and a drawing for a comic book, especially when there's scenes. I go as far as to say comic books were inspired by Egyptian artwork and Greco-Roman artwork, especially artwork that has to do with their mythology. The word mythology, right? The word myth is like the word mate and like the word math. And they talk about sacred math. Say, do the math. Okay, and sacred geometry. And that goes back to symmetry. And it goes back to body art and naked art. There's so many connections. Eros, where we get the word erotic, right? Erotic desire is a deity, is a Greco-Roman deity. Now, who's the king of the Greco-Roman pantheon, the Greco-Roman, all the Greco-Roman, gods? It is Zeus. And who is Zeus's father? It's Saturn. And who is Saturn? A.k.a. Cronus, the crow son, the Cronus. Saturn is a deity that eats the flesh of his offspring. Thus, we have this torturous society, okay, where people are tortured in school. Think very carefully about the school curriculum. It's designed to drive people crazy and to waste their life and torture them. Think about the corporate workplace. Think about how things are designed. It's a whole nother story. I don't want to go out of the scope of this, but I promise you that society is designed to torture people, to be a dog-eat-dog society. And thus the word dog is the word God spelled backwards. And the word rabbi is like the word rabbit, which goes back to the dog. And they hate the cat. The word hate is scrambled in the word cheat. And so is he cat and see he at, which goes back to the image, the I mage, the I game. The word game is mage scramble. And a me, right? Me kind of thing. And the place and the lace. And you see people are suffering from low testosterone levels these days. If you think that I'm wrong about this, you are crazy. And the word crazy is a play on words for see, raise, E. And also to raise, right? To burn something down. To raise the village. To raise hell. And hell is even a deity of the underworld. As is Hades. And Pluto and Orcus. So as we look at this thing, we ask ourselves, what the hell is going on here? There are people behind the scenes who are running a psychological operation and are social engineering. And they killed Marissa DiNapoli in a prolific fucking manner. The word prolific has the word pro in it. Procreate, proof, pro-of, profound, procrastinate, what have you, produce. And said is associated with lettuce. Let, and the second word is us, because these are psychopaths. These are monsters. And if you keep reproducing, then you are a monster too. Do you know where you are right now? When Psalm 9 says the nations keep digging it deeper and they fall into the pit that they have dug? When Jeremiah said that God set a trap for Babylon, do you know where the hell you are? This is not some planet full of hope. This is the top layer of hell. And I'm not talking about fantasy, mythology, nonsense. No. This is a planet that purposely, where the people here have purposely been breeding toward evil more and more. They've been breeding down to return to the dust. The Bible talks about the worm that consumes them is never devoured. The fire that burns them is never quenched. Okay, and then licking dust like a snake. The snake that consumes them. When people are raped, they feel like they're dead. Okay, the snake that consumes them, the genius, okay, the quote-unquote genius, the cunning snake, the spirit of outwitting you and getting you to date and marry and setting you up for rape and torturing in various ways. Think about some teachers who are fucked in the head, who say things like, I'm gonna talk like them for a second, help you understand. Terry, so where's your homework? Acting like a fucking bitch. That's a part of it. All those Freemasons who are teachers, and there's some kind of groups behind the scenes, all those college secret society motherfuckers. Adam Weishaupt, who is said to found the Illuminati, was a fucking teacher and a fucking Jesuit monk. A professor at Ingolstadt University. The Angles and the fallen angels. In Los Angeles, the lost angels. Like, where the fuck do you people think you are? If you think I'm wrong, where the hell do you think you are? You think you're in a fairy wonderland? This world is fucking evil. And wisdom is calling out through me. And there's a bunch of people in the government that are fueling me and poisoning me every day. You don't ever wonder why people won't say, hey, let me go talk to this guy. Let me go see if that's true. Because everyone worships the fucking devil. So everyone's acting like a bitch like the devil. Look at the devil's depiction. Some knucklehead, big burly knucklehead. Quit being an evil bitch. Grow up. Quit letting your emotions guide you and use your fucking head. He can't. He's a devil bitch. A little cigarette smoking devil bitch ass motherfucker. Pan? Pan on the tarot cards? Pan in Greek mythology? Well, some goat-feeded faggot. So again, they're fueling me to confuse you about this situation. I'm clearly right. Right? The rampart. What is the rampart? Right? It goes back to Greek mythology. Why are they called Bloods and Crips? Why do they use the number 13 and the number 14? Very significant numbers in the occult. The 13 for the M, for the Freemasonry. Pretty straightforward. There's a lot of connections there, but it's clearly part of occult numerology. Okay, these rampart guys, they would kill and cripple, and they would reward people with playing cards. Okay, playing the game, right? The mage. There's social engineering. They're playing their part in the social engineering process, which you clearly know involves corporations and corporate partnerships, involves the government. It involves various businesses like, the newspapers, right? The media, social media. Okay. It involves various law enforcement agencies, various military agencies, all of them. It involves gangs and social clubs. They all work together to make the society that you see today. When they kind of plan, they say, well, this is where the residential district is going to be. This is where the commercial district is going to be. They're districting. And they know it has a certain psychological effect, a certain social effect, right? Frats and fraternizing. Social clubs, social engineering, socializing. Now, why are they doing it in a way that's evil? Because they're evil. And why is the devil depicted as a pussy and a knucklehead? Because they're pussies and knuckleheads. I would never even think about betraying God for a moment. These people have been bred to betray God time and time again. It's even there in the word, bred, be read. and the kids, right? The kids, the rampart, and you're having kids. The children of goats are called kids. Mars, a deity of war. And there's a thin line between the Roman legion maintaining the peace in Rome, if you want to call it that, putting down riots, and going to war. So the military and the police were like one and the same in Rome. And this is a neo-Roman system. A lot of police officers served in the military. But that by itself, that's neither here nor there if it wasn't for the fact that there were overlapping secret societies. What kind of decent nation would allow for secret societies? Kennedy's speech, Eisenhower's speech, beware of the military industrial fucking company. You think it was kidding? You think Kennedy was joking around? Think the people who killed him were joking? You think God's joking when he says, fear me and not them? And then Jeremiah says to know God is to obey God, is to treat people fairly, with a universal scale, not with a mere social norm scale. Sally, oh, you've got to, and act like a fucking bitch? Think about it. When you take on their personalities, their spirits, their characteristics, their tendencies, their mentality, then you are in the Babylonian system. Come out of her. Flee from Babylon. Don't look back. Don't ever fucking turn into them. Stop being them. Repent. This is the fucking end.